From the day she was born, Arissa LeBrock carried a last name that turned heads before she even spoke a word. Her father, Seagal, was a martial arts legend, an action hero who broke bones on screen and carried an aura of mystery off it. Hollywood painted him as a man of discipline, intensity, and power, and while the cameras adored him, the shadow he cast over his daughter's life was enormous. Growing up in Los Angeles, Arissa lived between two worlds, the glitter of red carpets and the stillness of her father's training mats. When she was just 6, Seagal brought her into his private dojo, placing her tiny hands in a guard stance and saying quietly, "Balance is everything, little one. The world will try to throw you off. Never let it." Those words would follow her for life. But Hollywood was not kind to the children of legends. When Arissa tried to step into modeling in her late teens, agents smiled politely until they saw her last name. "Seagal's daughter?" they'd whisper, half impressed, half skeptical. One photographer joked during a shoot, "Can you do one of those karate faces your dad makes?" Laughter echoed. Arissa forced a smile but felt the sting. She wasn't seen as herself, just an extension of a fading star. Her mother, Kelly LeBrock, knew the pain of fame too well. She often told Arissa, "They'll either love you for the name or hate you for it. You have to build something that's yours." So she trained. Every morning before sunrise, Arissa ran the hills near Malibu, then practiced judo, boxing, and yoga. She didn't want to be a celebrity, she wanted to be strong. But strength alone didn't quiet the critics. Online tabloids mocked her appearance. Fans compared her to her parents. A viral tweet once read, "Seagal's daughter looks nothing like an action star. Maybe she should stick to fashion." Arissa said nothing publicly. She poured the anger into her training. Silent, relentless, focused. By her mid-20s, she was fit, confident, and searching for a purpose beyond fame. Then, fate intervened. At a fitness expo in California, a WWE talent scout watched her spar during a martial arts demo. Her movements were fluid, her focus absolute. Afterward, he approached her and said, "You ever thought about wrestling?" She laughed. "Me? In the ring?" He smiled. "You've got presence. WWE could use someone like you." That night, Arissa couldn't sleep. Wrestling was a world of storytelling, strength, and survival. All things she'd grown up around. Maybe, she thought, this was how she'd finally make people see her, not her father's reflection. She opened her laptop and filled out the WWE tryout form. At the bottom, there was a question. "Why do you want to join WWE?" She typed just one line, "Because I'm done being a shadow." When Arissa LeBrock landed in Orlando, Florida, the sun was brutal, the air heavy with heat, and the reality of her decision finally hit her. She wasn't in Malibu anymore. She was at the WWE Performance Center, the breeding ground for the next generation of global superstars. Here, reputations meant nothing. Everyone started from zero. The tryout roster was stacked with Olympic hopefuls, powerlifters, gymnasts, and MMA fighters. When her name was called, Arissa LeBrock, Los Angeles, California. A few heads turned. Someone whispered, "That's Steven Seagal's daughter." Another smirked, the kind of smirk she'd seen her whole life, the one that said, "She's only here because of her last name." But as soon as the drills began, the laughter stopped. Under the blazing Florida heat, Coach Sarah Amato ran the recruits through endless rolls, rope climbs, and conditioning sprints. Within minutes, people were gasping for air, collapsing to their knees. Arissa didn't stop. She wasn't the fastest, but she refused to quit. Sweat poured down her face, her arms trembling as she held a plank longer than anyone else. The coach barked, "You good, Seagal?" She gritted her teeth and replied, "Name's Arissa." When the grappling session started, she was paired with a former college wrestler twice her size. He smiled condescendingly, until she flipped him with a crisp judo throw that slammed the mat like thunder. The other recruits fell silent. Coach Amato raised an eyebrow. "Okay," she muttered. "The girl's got something." But the physical tests were only half the battle. Next came the promos. The chance to speak on the microphone, to sell yourself. That's where most athletes failed. WWE wasn't just about strength, it was about presence. Standing before the camera, Arissa hesitated. The producer shouted, "Tell us who you are and why you belong here." She took a deep breath and began, her voice steady but burning. "You've heard my father's name. You've seen the movies. You've seen the memes. But this is my story. I'm not here because of a legacy. I'm here to build one. You can laugh. You can doubt me. But I was raised to fight, and I'm not walking out of this ring until you know my name." When she finished, the room was silent. Then one of the coaches whispered, "That's fire." After 3 grueling days, most recruits quit. Arissa stayed. On the final morning, when her body ached and her voice was gone, she walked to the center of the ring one last time and whispered to herself, "Balance, little one." Her father's words, but now they were hers. When the final list was posted, she scanned for her name. There it was, Arissa LeBrock. Selected. For the first time in her life, she didn't feel like Steven Seagal's daughter. She felt like a warrior who had earned her place in the storm. The first few months at the WWE Performance Center were pure survival. For Arissa LeBrock, every sunrise meant more bruises, more sweat, and another chance to prove she belonged. Gone were the flashing cameras and the Malibu breeze, replaced by the echo of steel weights, the thud of bodies hitting the mat, and the relentless voice of coaches shouting commands. Beauty wasn't just a sport. It was theater under fire. One wrong move could break your neck, and one bad promo could kill your career before it even started. Arissa spent hours every day perfecting everything, from running the ropes to executing a perfect snap suplex. She studied tapes of Trish Stratus, Becky Lynch, and Charlotte Flair, analyzing how they told stories with movement, expression, and silence. "It's not about fighting," her coach said one day. "It's about making the crowd feel something." At first, her performances were stiff, her face too controlled, her posture too disciplined, a reflection of her martial arts background. One afternoon, Shawn Michaels, a legend and one of WWE's head trainers, watched her session quietly from the sidelines. When she finished, exhausted, he walked up and said, "You've got the moves, but do you have the soul?" She frowned. "What do you mean?" He pointed to his chest. "Out there, the audience doesn't connect to your technique. They connect to your truth. What's your pain? What's your fire? Use that." That night, Arissa sat alone in the locker room, thinking about those words. She remembered every insult, every online comment mocking her, every smirk she'd endured because of her father's name. That was her fire. The next day, she stepped into the ring with new energy, raw, angry, alive. Her strikes had emotion. Her facial expression screamed defiance. Suddenly, the coaches saw something they hadn't before: authenticity. Her transformation caught the attention of Paul "Triple H" Levesque, the man who oversaw WWE's developmental brand, NXT. He watched her during a closed training match and afterward told the staff, "She's got a chip on her shoulder, and that's gold if she learns how to control it." Weeks later, Arissa was called into his office. Triple H sat across from her, hands folded. "You've been working hard," he said. "We're going to test you. You'll debut at the next NXT showcase in front of a live crowd. No scripts, no safety nets. You either sink or swim." Her heart raced. This was the moment she had trained for. The moment to step out of the shadow forever. As she walked out of his office, she stopped by the mirror near the hallway. The reflection staring back at her was no longer the hesitant girl from Los Angeles. She tightened her ponytail, whispered, "This is my movie now," and smiled. The warrior was ready to take her first step into the fire. The arena lights in Winter Park, Florida, blazed like fire as Arissa LeBrock stood behind the curtain for the very first time. This was it, her NXT live debut. The crowd was small but loud, packed with hardcore wrestling fans who lived for new faces and fresh blood. Her palms were sweating. Her heart pounded in her chest like a war drum. The ring announcer's voice echoed through the speakers. Making her debut, from Malibu, California, Arissa LeBrock. She stepped out. The lights hit her face, the music kicked in, and for a split second she felt unstoppable. But then, the laughter started. A section of the crowd began chanting, "Seagal's daughter! Seagal's daughter!" Someone yelled, "Show us your dad's moves!" The jeers spread, echoing through the building. She froze for a moment, staring at the fans who didn't see her as a fighter, just a punchline. Her opponent that night was Cora Jade, a fast-rising NXT star. As the bell rang, Cora whispered under her breath, "Let's see if you're just Hollywood hype." The words lit a fuse. The first few minutes were brutal. Arissa was overpowered and thrown across the ring twice. The crowd laughed again. But then, something inside her snapped. Every insult, every article that called her the daughter of a washed-up action star, every time she was underestimated, it all erupted in one moment. Cora charged forward. Arissa countered with a perfect hip toss, the same judo technique her father had taught her as a child. The crowd gasped. She followed with a crushing roundhouse kick, then a devastating spinning back fist that sent Cora crashing to the mat. The arena fell silent, not out of disrespect, but disbelief. She climbed to the top rope, a move she'd failed in practice dozens of times, and launched herself into a flawless flying knee drop. The referee's hand hit the mat. 1, 2, 3. It was over. The same crowd that mocked her now rose to their feet. The chants changed. "Arissa! Arissa!" Backstage, the reaction was electric. Coaches, producers, and even Triple H himself watched from the monitor area. He turned to Shawn Michaels and said, "She just shut everyone up." When Arissa came through the curtain, the entire locker room clapped. Someone shouted, "Seagal's daughter just made her own name." She smiled, out of breath but glowing with adrenaline. Later that night, scrolling through social media, she saw the clips of her match already trending. Fans were stunned. One tweet read, "They laughed when she walked out. They cheered when she left. Respect." That was the moment everything changed. The world no longer saw Steven Seagal's daughter. They saw Arissa LeBrock, a fighter with her own fire, her own identity, and her own story to tell. And she wasn't done yet. After her breakout match at NXT Live, Arissa LeBrock's name spread like wildfire. Overnight, she went from Steven Seagal's daughter to the newest viral sensation in the wrestling world. Clips of her debut racked up over 5 million views on social media. Fans couldn't get enough of her power, precision, and cold intensity, a style that reminded everyone of 1980s martial arts movies but reimagined for the WWE ring. Even WWE executives started to notice. A week later, she got the call. She'd be appearing on an episode of NXT television, this time with full production, a promo segment, and a storyline being built around her. It was the beginning of what could be a star-making run. But with fame came whispers. Some wrestling journalists started calling her success manufactured, hinting that her Hollywood connections opened doors others had to fight for. A tabloid headline read, "Seagal's daughter skips the line in WWE development." Backstage, not everyone welcomed her. Some wrestlers rolled their eyes when she entered the locker room. One veteran muttered, "Guess it helps when your dad's a movie star." Arissa kept her head down, but inside it burned. She'd trained for years. Boxing, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and submission grappling. Not because of her father, but in spite of him. Her parents had split when she was young, and her mother, Kelly LeBrock, raised her with discipline and heart. She wasn't a product of privilege, she was a product of persistence. Her next match came against Roxanne Perez, one of NXT's brightest young champions. The match was high stakes, not for a title but for respect. The crowd was split, half cheering her on, half chanting, "Daddy's money?" Roxanne extended her hand before the bell. Arissa hesitated, then shook it, a sign that she'd play it fair. But when the bell rang, Roxanne went for a quick roll-up, nearly stealing the win in seconds. That lit a spark. Arissa unleashed a ferocity no one had seen before. Sharp kicks, submission holds, and explosive takedowns that blurred the line between wrestling and MMA. Midway through the match, commentary caught the moment. She's fighting like she's got something to prove, and maybe she does. After a grueling 12 minutes, Arissa locked in a triangle choke that forced Roxanne to tap out. The audience roared. It wasn't luck. It wasn't family name. It was dominance. Backstage, Shawn Michaels, now head of NXT Creative, smiled and said, "She's the real deal." Triple H nodded. She's not just Seagal's kid anymore. She's a brand. But the higher she climbed, the more the world wanted to drag her back down. Old Hollywood gossip resurfaced. Stories about her father, scandals, martial arts controversies. Every headline had her name attached to his. It was clear now. Arissa wasn't just fighting opponents in the ring. She was fighting her bloodline, her past, and the weight of a last name that refused to let her go. Months passed, and Arissa LeBrock had gone from a curious newcomer to a name fans chanted with respect. WWE knew they had lightning in a bottle. Her mix of martial arts precision and raw emotion made her stand out in a sea of performers chasing fame. But Arissa wasn't chasing fame. She was chasing freedom. Freedom from the shadow of her father. Freedom from the whispers that she didn't belong, and she got that chance at WWE SummerSlam. The company built an emotional storyline. Arissa LeBrock versus Ronda Rousey, the woman who'd once ruled the octagon and the squared circle alike. The build-up was electric. Ronda mocked her in promos. "You're just another Hollywood name trying to look tough. This isn't a movie, sweetheart. This is my world." Arissa's reply was short but cold. "Then I'll make it my world." The stage was set. Las Vegas, sold-out crowd, over 60,000 fans. The arena lights dimmed, and her entrance theme, a haunting remix of Japanese taiko drums and electric guitar, echoed through the air. She walked to the ring, her face calm, her body steady, but her eyes burned. The match started fast. Ronda dominated early. Arm drags, ground control, that signature scowl. But Arissa fought back with precision. A spinning back kick to Ronda's ribs, a judo sweep straight into a mounted triangle. The crowd gasped. Midway through the match, Ronda taunted her. "Your dad taught you that?" Arissa smiled and struck back with a perfect leg trap takedown that flipped the script. She locked Ronda into a submission that mirrored her father's Aikido style, but twisted, evolved, uniquely hers. Commentary exploded. That's not Seagal's technique. That's Arissa's. For the first time, the crowd didn't chant Seagal's daughter. They chanted, "Arissa, Arissa, Arissa." After 15 brutal minutes, Ronda tried to counter with an armbar. Arissa reversed it, rolled through, pinned her shoulders, and the referee's hand hit the mat. 2. 3. The bell rang. The crowd erupted. Fireworks exploded over the arena. Ronda lay stunned as Arissa stood tall, drenched in sweat and tears, her arms raised to the sky. In that moment, she wasn't someone's daughter. She wasn't a headline. She wasn't Hollywood's shadow. She was a champion. In spirit, if not yet in title. Backstage, Triple H hugged her and whispered, "They laughed at you. Now they'll remember you." Later that night, she posted one message on social media. "They called me his daughter. Now they'll call me me." The post went viral. Every outlet, ESPN, Variety, WWE.com, ran the same headline. Arissa LeBrock shatters expectations and her own legacy. She had silenced the world not with words, but with willpower. Her dark secret wasn't failure or nepotism. It was that she was always meant to be more than a name. And now, finally, she was.